The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And here we are, episode 79.
79.
Almost 80.
Almost.
Big number.
That is a big number. Yeah.
What is the topic?
This is facing mental illness.
Cool. I think it's appropriate.
Yes.
Especially for these troubling times.
Yes, it is important right now, for sure. Yep.
Well, before we hop into that, do you have anything from last week?
I do. I have a couple things. The first thing that I have is a message I received from Kaylee.
Cool.
She says, I just got done listening to the last episode, The Importance of Acceptance. And I'll have to say, this one really hit me. The part where you were talking about grief and how, yeah, you can accept it one day, but the next might be a whole other ballgame. I feel that, and it is so true. Being as intuitive as I am and knowing so much about the other side does make it easier to accept until the moment of meltdown. Totally get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I am really looking forward to next week's episode. I plan on sharing it with a friend who has recently been in a tough spot in life with hopes that it helps. Thank you and Danny for what you two bring to this world. You guys have helped me bring more light into my life.
That's cool. Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you, Kaylee.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, really, we do. We'd love to hear those. I've been getting a lot of messages lately, and I love them. And I don't share them all. I just, pick and choose. A lot of them are, people that would just rather not have their stuff shared. Mm-hmm. But please feel free to message me if you have questions about mentoring. A lot of them are questions about mentoring. A lot of them just sharing your experiences. And if you want us to share those on the show, we love to. So, you can let us know. And I get back to every single person that messages me. So if you send a message and I don't get back to you, it's because I didn't get it. Because sometimes they go to spam,
right.
and Facebook.
Yeah,
and,
I've had that happen.
Yeah, even in Gmail, they go to spam. So, but yeah, keep sending those. I love those.
Cool.
And then I wanted to say last week, I didn't put it in the show, but we said that we had an exciting news or something. I can't remember if we released what it was. Oh, yeah, we did. We said we were having merch coming.
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry,
yeah.
My old brain, I have to catch up with where I am.
That's all right.
So I had put on our Facebook page when I put this last week's episode up that the first person to tell me what that exciting news was would win a prize.
Okay.
And Cassie McGuire won. She was the first person, and everybody seems super excited about the merch. And so
she guessed it right.
She went and listened to the show.
Oh, okay.
So I said, listen to the show, and then first person to let me know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
good job, Cassie.
Yeah, and we're starting to get that stuff. We got magnets and stickers and coasters and cups, and there's other stuff coming. And then once everything's here, we can take pictures and.
Yeah, it's a cool mug, like coffee mug.
Yeah, that came already, and I have a couple tote bags coming and a sweatshirt. So I'm excited to model it all. It's coming in slowly, come on, get here. But I think this week it'll be here. So
we'll take a picture.
Yeah,
cool,
for sure. So yay!
Very exciting.
That's my recap.
Nice. Well, shall we hop into 79 then?
Yes, we shall.
Episode 79.
79.
Facing mental illness.
So I had this idea. It hit me really hard. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, before we did last week's episode, that we needed to do this. And one of the reasons that I felt that way is because I keep seeing these videos on the internet of these Karens freaking out. And I just sit there and I watch these and I wonder, what possesses somebody to treat somebody else this way?
Right.
And at the moment that I was really thinking that, it hit me that a lot of these these people have mental illness. And things like the Rona or like the election or the other things that are going on right now, outside of people's
global
personal
warming.
issues. Yeah.
Right.
Outside of people's personal issues, there's so much going on, and it seems to be bringing out a lot of this mental illness. So I felt like it was important to talk about. Also because there is a lot of stigma behind it, and people don't freely talk about it like they should. It's starting to get better.
Yeah.
Like when we were kids, we didn't really talk about, like, I went to therapy. I don't know about you. Only told my closest friends that I went to therapy.
I did.
You know, it wasn't as accepted. Now I think it's more acceptable that you're doing that. It shows that you're bettering your mental health.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think carrying around these thoughts and emotions, you know, for too long without being able to have a safe place you can just, you know what I mean? It's safe, it's confidential, and you can just let it out.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah, we seem to forget that we're human, and that just because we don't talk about these things doesn't mean that other people don't feel them. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did is I looked up what the statistics are. How many people actually suffer from some form of mental illness, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, let me give you the definition of mental illness. Yeah. It's a wide variety of conditions that affect mood, thinking, and behavior. So let's see. So the statistics, it's more than 50% of Americans will experience mental illness or a disorder at some point in their life.
I agree.
1 in 5 Americans have persistent mental health issues. And that's 19% of the adults in the United States. We have a higher rate of mental illness in this country. Worldwide, the average is 10%.
Yeah.
Ours is higher. Mm-hmm. So you got to ask yourself, why? Yeah. You know?
That's a very good question.
Because there's so many countries that are just like, hey, it's all good. It's peace and love. Well, right. I want to go there. Canada, our friends to the north. Hi.
Well, I think it's important to say, first of all, that there's no shame in mental illness. And whether you're facing it in your own life, in your own mind, or you know somebody, a loved one, or somebody close to you that struggles with it, there's no shame either way.
Right.
The statistics show right there that it's a pretty big, large number.
It's a very
and
large
especially
number.
For this country, you pose a very great question. Why?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why are we being brought up this way and, you know, not stopping this sort of chain reaction, if you will, in its tracks and
right.
redirecting this?
Well, and one of the things that causes mental illness is our genes. And that is not something that it's just like all of a sudden it shows up.
Right.
It's something that's carried down. And so you have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll get into that later. But there's just certain things. You can't just let it go is the point. And so we want to talk about it and break that stigma a little bit.
Right.
So that people feel comfortable talking about it. I asked our listeners how many of them have some kind of mental illness, whether diagnosed or not. 90% of the people that took this poll said that they have been diagnosed or not, have some form of mental illness. Yeah. And I think our group is very honest. Mm-hmm. It does, obviously, they're a different kind of demographic because, you know, it's a spiritual group and they're helping us with this. But I really think that number isn't ridiculous. No. I think people just don't want to admit it, or they don't know. They just figure that what they're dealing with is maybe normal, you know, because they don't know any better.
Kind of like what you said earlier, that it's become a little bit more acceptable, you know, for us to seek, you know, counseling or therapy for our issues, and people a little bit more willing to admit that I struggle with some form of mental illness, whether it's you know, bulimia or depression,
right,
or, you know, rage,
right,
whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that can bring on mental illness too. You know, like I just said, there's genetic factors. Mm-hmm. My mother and my grandmother and my aunt, very bad mental illness, but not the same. Right. Like, that's where I wonder in the genes. Like, I didn't really look into that. I'm not really a scientific type, you know, that I can understand all this stuff. Right. But I wonder, how does that work where my grandma's mental illness was different than my mom's, my aunt's, and what I struggle with? So is it just in your genes that you have some form of it? You know, I'm curious about that. Where does that change? Or, you know, you have your environmental factors too.
That's a big part.
How you're brought up. I mean, my grandma was raised in the war, so I'm sure that she had a lot of things from that.
That's kind of what I meant by, like, why can't... There's not enough emphasis on breaking the cycle, the chain, you know? Like, the way that so many of us have been brought up, and by some of the traumas that we've experienced, to not carry that on to the next generation, to your own children.
Yes,
you know.
very much so. One thing that I have noticed from therapy through the years is that a lot of times you just talk about maybe your experiences and what happened to you in your life, but you don't dig into really how they're making you feel and how it affects your life.
Right.
And that's really, it's intense work to do. But I've been very honest with the fact that I've gone to therapy on and off since I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
And this is the first time in my life that I've been in therapy where I actually feel like I'm making a change. I'm getting it out. I'm learning how to change the damage that was done to me, where none of the other therapy did that. So I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, therapy doesn't work. I really don't want to talk about it. Well, it might not work for a few reasons. One of them is because you're not getting that deep into it.
Their first statement a minute ago, you said letting it out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to be willing to go in there and let it out. And like you, I've attended therapy since about that age too, myself on and off throughout life for multiple things, whether it was being a tough kid to handle and my parents felt like it might be a good idea for me to go in and talk about what's wrong, what's bothering me, or going through divorce and feeling like I've need to do that, you know. There's been many reasons, but it's good. And it's good to get it out, but you have to be willing.
I've been doing a lot of work on myself about why the things that happened to me as a child weren't my fault. And, you know, you can sit there and you can say, it wasn't my fault. It was my mom's. But you have to give yourself reasons to believe that, because just saying it doesn't do it. So I'm going to give you an example. This hit me really hard this morning. I've never looked at it this way. So I went through a hard time with my family and came out of it, and I was about 12 or 13 when that stopped, when life kind of started getting back to normal. Well, around 15 or 16, I decided I wanted to see a therapist again. I didn't go into therapy wanting to talk about my childhood. That's not why I went in there. But they want to know, what's your history been? You know, have you suffered abuse? What is, you know, your younger years like? So I was honest, and I told this therapist exactly what I had been through, and he said, well, we're going to have to deal with this. We're going to have to bring your mom and, you know, your stepdad and the family in, and we're going to have to deal with this. And I went and I told my mom this, and she said, are you going to start this again? We're going to do this again. Why are we going to bring this up? And I realized today that put a on my therapy, because she denied it. She denied that I could have the acceptance that I needed. Why? Because it was difficult. So these things that we realize, that we kind of come to click like, whoa, I didn't stand a chance because she didn't give me the opportunity to deal with that. Right. It wasn't my fault. These things kind of change the way that you look at what's happened to you.
Yeah, because I think that made your mom think about it for herself, and should I face what I've done?
That's right. And she didn't want to.
Right.
She just wanted to sweep it under the rug. And because it was swept under the rug, I didn't get to deal with it either. She didn't let me go back to that therapist. So that was the end of that. What was funny is that he actually became her therapist like 4 or 5 years later.
That's
Isn't that weird?
Manipulative, maybe?
Yeah, very strange. But
sounds similar to another
manipulative
situation that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I know. There's unfortunately, I'm not the only one that's had to deal with these kinds of things.
No.
But therapy is not bad at all. And for people that say it doesn't work for them, I just truly believe you're not going into it the right way.
Right.
You know, I didn't for years, and I didn't know. I really didn't know. I just needed a therapist to be like, yeah, you got to deal with this, you know? So
feeling comfortable and safe with the person, that you choose is important.
Yes.
You got to have somebody that you're confident in, you know, and you feel like, okay, I'm comfortable enough to share some of these things. I kind of look at it as that person probably sees so many people and hears so many things that they don't remember half the stuff. No. What's the most important part about the process, which you said, and that is getting it out.
Yes.
When you are talking to somebody that has studied psychology and things like that, they can be a sounding board to help kind of tell you, well, clinically, through studies and what we've seen is that humans tend to react in certain ways and do these examples. So you might be going along those lines, but then they kind of can do this,
Right.
and they can break it down for you and explain to you. And often these people have gotten into this business themselves because they themselves had trauma in their own
Yes.
life, and they felt the need to share how important this process was by becoming professional themselves,
Right.
and allowing people to unload on them.
Right. Absolutely.
It's all we're doing is we're helping each other by listening,
Yes.
talking and listening.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? There's a lot of therapists out there, and you know, people. I've gone to a lot of them, and this time that I was looking for one, I told you I want somebody that understands my job. I want somebody that understands spiritualism. And I found it. I found somebody that actually has the same abilities that I do. She didn't advertise that,
Right.
but I was drawn to her, and she teaches meditation. And we do her. It's over Zoom. I don't even have to leave the house. You know
Great.
what I
It's
mean?
a blessing. It's great.
It's absolutely wonderful. But I had to find the right person, and I had emailed quite a few, and I had heard back from a few that were just outrageously priced. You know. But I knew that those were roadblocks because I had to find the right one. So
Right.
if you don't find the right one, if if you're like reaching out and they're not getting back to you, that right one is out there.
Right.
I actually found her on Psychology Today. I did a keyword search for therapists that specialize in spiritualism or, whatever you're looking for. So try that if you want somebody, because I know a lot of the people that listen to our shows are working on their abilities. I like to mentor people, but I'm not like that. I'm not a therapist.
Right.
So if you want somebody like that, I highly recommend just looking on like that kind of website. You'll find it.
Right.
It's there. You just gotta look a little bit for it. It's been
All right.
very good.
Yay for you for
Took a
sticking
while.
in there to,
Yeah.
search and find the right person.
It didn't have a choice. When you get this deep into the spiritual awakening, I feel like it's that there's that not constantly like I kept telling you I got to find a therapist, and you were like, "Well, why? Are you unhappy?" I'm like, "No, I don't know. I got to find a therapist. I got to deal with past issues, I guess, you know."
Right.
And it makes sense now.
Yeah.
But there was that voice in my head going, "Come on, let's do this.
Right.
Let's find somebody." So if I would have given up, that voice would still
Yeah.
be there. So listen to those; they're important, and you may not understand them at the time, but they are help. They're
I think what the process has helped me in my life with problems I've had, is that it's taught me that this is a part of my movie, my journey,
Yes.
my life, okay? These things cannot be erased from my database, from my memory. Okay, they can't. Not until I hit Alzheimer's and forget everything,
Right.
But they can't not be erased. However, I can learn how to coexist with these things in my life
Yes,
without letting them take control of me.
you make a great point there.
So you're learning how to not forget,
Right.
but to move forward.
Yes.
You're learning how to take these things that have happened to you or things that you've done and grow, see what it was,
Right.
that made you do, or why this happened, or whatever the situation is, to grow.
Right.
Do you continue to make the same things, the same choices? Do the same things keep happening to you?
Right.
Is there a reason?
Right.
Getting in there and communicating with somebody to help you sort of kind of throw all your thoughts and feelings out onto a table like a jigsaw puzzle, and that person sits there and helps you kind of put the pieces back together to understand and see the bigger picture.
Right. It's not easy. I think people want it to be easy, and that's the thing. Depending on what you need, help for, why you're going to therapy, because there's so many different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
It really is, you get what you put into it. And if you're just going to put the bare minimum into it, then you're probably just going to get the bare minimum back. One of the things that we don't even realize is that a lot of what our problems are can come from very, very early childhood, as early as infancy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember those things.
No.
You have repressed memories. There's things
Sure.
about myself I don't understand. And so that's one of the things that the therapist and I are working on. And she's told me already, in this, you're probably going to have some of those repressed memories that are going to come out because you need to know. And that's scary. That's very scary to me. I'm like, oh shit. What more can I possibly need to know, But I have to face it.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult. So it's not easy, but I know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel of this coming out of this, I don't know, caterpillar stage, trying to, I have to fix this part of me before I can move on to the next stage. And it has to be done. And if I don't do it, I'm going to stagnate myself.
Right.
And so that's for everybody, We have to deal with these things that happen to us, or even the mental illness that we don't know where it comes from, because it doesn't always come from something environmental or that's happened to you.
Right.
It could be the genes. I don't know why my mom had the mental illness that she did, besides the fact that it was inherited, but I don't know anything about her early days. So, it could come from a number of places.
Right.
Some people have a chemical imbalance. And a chemical imbalance can be started from that early childhood trauma. So a lot of it does go back to that.
I do believe that. I really do believe that a big majority of what we do comes from early childhood trauma.
Yes.
Some of us tend to follow that path and could make our situation worse for ourselves. And then some people tend to recognize that and decide to change their path and sort of work on this part of them that does have this pre-existing trauma that you, like you said, sometimes you may not even be aware of. In this process, again, I think it really helps you to nurture and love that inner child. It helps you let it know it's okay.
Right.
Like what happened sucks, and in reality, no, it's not okay that it happened. But again, it can't be erased.
Right.
So you have to find a way to sort of move forward and let it be okay.
Right. Exactly.
Which sounds like an oxymoron. But it's really kind of what you get to a point when you're young and you first start going to therapy. It's like you said, your parents are making you go or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, and you're not there yet.
Yeah.
Fully.
For sure.
When you seek it on your own as an adult, then chances are you'll get a lot more out of it.
Yes.
Because you're at a point where you need to let it out.
Right, exactly.
So.
And there's still that stigma behind it that it, like, some people don't want to talk about, as an adult, that they're going to therapy because they don't want people to think that they're crazy or they have problems in their life.
There's no shame
or whatever.
in that.
No, there shouldn't be any shame. We need to normalize it because we make our physical health normal. Like, if you are having, like, I have migraines, I go to the doctor, right? Why is it any different for me to go because I have depression? Because I have depression and I need help coping with life.
Right.
That's so normal. It shouldn't be looked at that way. It makes me very sad that there are people that look at it like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We see all kinds of fitness magazines and take care of your body, and that's true too. But what about your mind?
Yeah, your mind is just as important. My therapist gave me this great analogy that she heard, and what it was is that when you're going through this change, when you're kind of transforming yourself, it's like a caterpillar that goes into the chrysalis, okay? And she said if you open the chrysalis when they're becoming a butterfly, it's complete chaos. It's like there's so much change going on there, but the very last thing to change is the head. And I took from that in this kind of process of like this spiritual awakening, that this is what has to be done for me to grow into a butterfly. My head has to change. And that in order to do that, you got to go back and look at these things. You've got to deal with your own mental illness, whatever it is.
Right.
I have been diagnosed with depression my whole life.
Right.
It's just, is it in my genes? Do I have a chemical imbalance? I don't know.
Right.
But I've accepted it. I also have bad anxiety that's intermittent.
Right.
And it's very normal. And I shouldn't be afraid to share that,
Yeah. No, you shouldn't be ashamed of it.
No, I'm not. And that's what I want to help our listeners with, too, is
even
that
if
they're not ashamed.
Take, for example, too, outside of like somebody you're like yourself, people that have served in the military.
Yes.
They went in with the fight the good fight and, freedom and America and this whole thing, not really knowing exactly what you would face.
Right.
And the consequences that would have on you for a lifetime.
Right. Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people that have served in the military and seen some things that you would never wish on your worst enemy.
Absolutely, and they definitely don't know that going in. I've talked to military that has passed, and they have told me that you are pumped full of, I don't want to call them lies, but maybe misconceptions to try and get you pumped. And that can cause a lot of problems mentally, besides the fact of what you see, because a lot of people in the military that kind of lose it a little bit or have that PTSD.
Right.
They're not necessarily on the front lines. They still see things. They still deal with things. There's a lot of bullying that goes on, and, you know, you're supposed to act a certain way. So we have a lot of military with mental illness and PTSD. I wish I would have thought about that. I would have looked up the numbers. But
No, my own father, who served in Vietnam, he told me at one point where he got to a point where he knew he needed to go talk because he was having like anxiety, like you said yourself.
Yeah.
And he's like, I couldn't be indoors. I couldn't like have a roof or walls. I need to be outside. And he felt like, oh, maybe this is part of that Vietnam kind of thing coming back. And he wasn't even a frontline, you know, infantry type. He was actually in the medical side. So he did see a lot of terrible, you know, things. And, and was constantly like on call.
Yeah.
To be up as soon as, you know, something, injury or something came in. So,
Yeah, it's a tough
and again, nobody really wished that on themselves.
No.
But that's something that they can't erase either.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you move forward and live with that?
Right. You have to deal with it somehow. If you don't deal with it, you just push it, you regress it, and it will hit. There's no way of avoiding that.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of soldiers, like you had said something about your dad having like an exit interview, you know, and are you okay mentally?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it, like you said, it doesn't hit that fast. A lot of times these things take time to kick in. You know, even in grief, you might have that, you know, grief in the beginning and don't realize it's going to lead to PTSD, which it can. You know, these things, they take time sometimes. And
he even said that exit interview was very minimal.
Yeah.
And when you think about, you know, a guy that's done at least 4-year tour of duty in Vietnam, he's going to put on a face to get out. I want to go home.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. No matter what's going on.
Yeah.
I got to get out of here.
So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you have brought up anxiety, and I think that's probably a good thing to talk about because I know a lot of people deal with anxiety and panic attacks, and it is not something that a lot of people feel comfortable talking about.
Right.
I came across a really, really interesting video on TikTok, and it's this girl that has a therapy dog, and she's been training this dog since it's a puppy. It's a little Vizsla, and she has panic attacks. Somehow this dog detects her panic attacks before she even knows that they're coming.
Wow.
She was perfectly fine. She was doing a TikTok video, like a dance, and the dog was getting in the way because it'll like jump on her to alert her. And she's like, I'm fine, get off of me, you know, trying to shoo him off. And then all of a sudden it hit her. The panic attack started. And I was like, that's really interesting because I've never really thought about that it can happen without you even maybe having a trigger. You know, that is possible. I've had panic attacks where there's not necessarily a trigger. I don't think there always has to be. You know, a lot of things like I've had panic attacks. I have some weird thing about looking up. Mm-hmm. If, like, when we went to Epcot and they have the big giant ball and standing close to it or underneath it and looking up throws my equilibrium off. And then I feel like I'm going to pass out. Right. So then the panic starts. And for me, I don't want to show that I'm, like, having this panic attack. So I'm just like, come on, guys, let's go. Let's go over here where I'm inside and I'm not having this problem, you know, because you don't want to ruin anybody's fun. Yeah. And inside you're like, yeah. It happens. It happens to all of us. And, you know, sometimes we don't even realize, I don't know why I feel that way.
Yeah.
I have no clue, but it's something that I have battled. Actually, it could be a side effect of earthquake that we had in the 90s.
That can give you some PTSD for sure.
Yeah, because I do remember, like, shortly after that being on the upstairs floor of the mall, and it was the first time in my life that I felt the floor moving in the mall, which it does. If you stand still on the second floor of a mall, you'll feel it moving. But I never felt that before.
Yeah.
And I was like, earthquake. It wasn't, you know.
They're designed to do that. But
Yeah, and after that, I think that's probably what did it. I didn't even like being on the second floor of a mall.
Yeah.
You know, these things, they happen. We don't even realize what they do to us, that trigger, you know, that's something that can set us off. And there's more people that deal with this than we realize.
Yeah, I mean, what if you live in a hurricane area and you have an immense fear of hurricanes? So every season you're faced with this, or tornadoes. I mean, for us,
Yeah, it's fires, and
earthquakes and fires. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
there's a lot of reasons besides just maybe childhood trauma. It could be you experienced an earthquake when you were a child,
right?
Or
exactly.
something happened to you, some sort of abuse happened to you, but whatever, you know.
Yeah, you never know. There's all kinds of things that can bring on those anxiety attacks and
Right.
PTSD feelings. I asked our listeners, the ones that said that they have a mental illness, what the most common ones are. What do they struggle with? And anxiety and depression were tied.
Yeah.
So I want to, like I said, I want to talk a little bit about the anxiety.
Okay.
Anxiety is categorized by feelings of worry or fear that is strong enough to interfere with regular activities. Things that fall into this category of anxiety are PTSD, OCD, and panic attacks. This is super common, and it affects more than 3 million people in the United States per year. Mm-hmm. It's usually self-diagnosable. There's no test or anything that's going to tell you if you have anxiety, or, you know, it's just, you know, if you know.
Yeah.
If you have anxiety, you know. But there are things that you can do. Therapy and medication and you know, some other great things. Meditation is really, really helpful for the anxiety, because I can now stop myself. I can stop a panic attack by the skills that I have learned with calming myself in meditation. That I can just like stop. And there's been a couple of times where like I'll feel one coming and I'll go into like the bathroom, like just say at a mall or whatever, or, you know, at a concert or something. Sometimes it's when there's a lot of people around and I just need a moment.
Yeah.
And I just sit and I close my eyes and I try to feel that same thing that I feel when I go into the meditative mode, and I block everything out for a minute. And it's hard to do, but the more you meditate and the more that you get used to it, the easier that is to do.
Right.
And I can stop myself in a panic attack. Not all the time, but a lot more than I used to be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Symptoms of anxiety and panic attacks are feeling restless and wound up, difficulty concentrating, difficulty controlling feelings of worry, and muscle tension. I get a lot of tension in my shoulders and my neck, and I know that's where I put all my stress. I can feel it.
Right.
Like, I bet a lot of you listening right now, if you paid attention to your posture, your elbows are probably up.
Yeah.
I mean, your shoulders are up at your ears, you know. Bring them down and take a deep breath, and that right there kind of releases a little bit of stress.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to their jobs.
Yeah.
And what kind of anxiety and stress that can put on you.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Some other things are phobias. Fear of things like spiders, snakes, or, you know, anything like that, needles.
all of the above.
Yeah, whatever. It just depends on how far you take it. You know, I was thinking about this. I used to be so afraid of bees, right? I got stung by a bee once. I stepped on it. It wasn't a big deal. But ever since then, you know, terrified of bees. And now I've gotten to the point where I realize it's not going to hurt me. I mean, if there's a swarm and I'm bugging, I'm sure. But if it's just one little bee flying around, you know, I don't let myself get that anxiety where I'm like, where is it? Where is it?
I just don't like those big black
I know,
bumblebee
you get all
ones.
freaked out by those, yeah. But they're really, for the most part, non-aggressive. Like, most of them don't want to hurt you. They're not into that. They're just defending themselves, just like anything else. You know, they really will leave you alone. Although snakes, I used to think that about snakes, and I was like, okay, calm down with the rattlesnakes, because if you're on a hike and you run into one and it's coiled up, it's not going to come after you, right? It's going to stay there. Oh, I've seen videos now of snakes coming after people. I'm like, okay, fear of snakes stays. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But we all have them, whatever they are. You know, it's not crazy. I know for a long time I felt like my phobias and stuff made me a little bit nuts, a little bit crazy. Because I did have a lot of them, because that's what I learned. My grandma was afraid of everything. So when you're brought up that way,
Right.
you just have those fears. But it is really, really normal. It's, most people have them. They just don't talk about them.
We live in a totally wild world, so there's things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
I think I think a big part of it too, like for me, I put a lot of emphasis on death, so that would bring me like anxiety about I don't want to die from this, and I don't want to die from that. I don't want to. And I was like, if I could just accept that, what, I'm going to die,
right,
at some point, hopefully later than sooner,
right.
but it gets me more in the mindset of trying to enjoy the moment,
Right, exactly.
the day, because as the more I start to think about that, if I don't throw myself in anxiety, is that there is no guarantee for tomorrow
Right.
or the next day or beyond, but you do what's necessary today to live and enjoy,
Right.
and hopefully set yourself up for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But I am going to go.
Yeah, we all are.
But once I kind of got to that acceptance there, that helped me in that anxiety.
Yes. Absolutely.
And there was other things tied to it, but that was a big one for me. And I don't have that anymore now.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I didn't even think about that. I should have brought that up in the discussion group, because I bet a lot of people have the anxiety over their own death. Really.
Mortality.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
we're human. We're going to all go.
Yeah, before I found out I was a medium, even after my mom died, like you and I, we would sit in bed and watch TV, and what if we were watching something that started talking about death or maybe war, somebody sick or whatever, I could get my mind to go.
Me too, yeah.
And just be like, oh my God, how's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? You're actually going to die someday. There's a day you're not going to be here anymore. Well, now I see it really, really differently. And
Right.
what scares me more about dying is getting sick and having to deal with that.
Right.
I not that I want to die, but if I was faced, I think, with like chemo or moving on, I'd probably choose to move on.
Right.
And I have been given some information from the other side that if I don't take care of some health issues, that could happen.
Right.
And I think that's why they told me, because they know that I'll just be like, meh, well, just take me then.
Right.
Because I'm not afraid to die.
Right.
It's just a transition. It's not,
Right.
a huge deal for me. I don't know. I don't want it to, like I said, but it's a different way of looking at it, and it definitely
Exactly.
changes. I try not to have the anxiety about what could happen health-wise, because you just got to deal with it. You got to deal with it when it comes, and it
Right.
is what it is, and you can't sidestep that, what you're
No.
going to have to face with. But if you can accept the fact that should something happen to you, that you're going to go to a better place, and it's not lights out.
Right.
One of the things that I heard
Exactly.
when you were talking about that, and this is a very, very good point, that a lot of people have anxiety over death because of what they're leaving behind.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily because it's lights out,
Right.
but because what happens to my children, my animals, my whatever. So the best thing that you can do is to have some kind of arrangement, like a will, or have these conversations with your family that, look, should something happen to me, because if you're more prepared, I'm not saying be prepared for your own death.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that if you're more prepared, you're a little bit more relaxed. It's like, I've never lived in a place that has tornadoes or whatever, but I would imagine that if you have a storm cellar, you're probably way more relaxed than that person that just has to go into their bathtub or whatever.
Right.
So you're just taking a little bit more insurance to make sure that you can deal with things better. And that's kind of the way I looked at this, is that you're just making it so that should this happen, it will be okay. And that puts your mind at ease a little bit.
Yeah, because a good point that you made is like, what are you leaving behind?
Right.
Well, if it's the sports car and the house and the, golf club membership that you're leaving behind, well, sorry, somebody else gets that.
Right.
If it's the loved ones, that's different.
Yeah.
However, your perception will be different from that side
Yes.
once you're there and looking down or looking at your loved ones. You're not a worrier there.
Exactly.
You're a worker.
Yeah.
So now your job is to help your loved ones.
Right.
And your understanding of their journey and their life becomes a lot more clear, just like your own does. And you understand that, you know what? we're separated in the physical for a little while, just the physical.
Right.
It's up to you if you want to connect differently, because you can, and I think there's proof all over the world now that this is possible.
Right.
You're a great example. But there's also, you'll be together.
Right.
Again.
Exactly.
So you realize that what you've left behind is merely just going to follow you
Yes.
in its own time.
Yes.
That changed it for me a lot. My own mortality. It was a lot about what I was going to leave behind.
Yeah.
What's become important to me since this now, because now we can watch shows and kind of like you, I don't think about those things.
No.
My mind doesn't race anymore when I see someone die in an accident in a movie or a show or something.
Yeah.
But I can now focus on what am I leaving behind? Instead of questioning it, I'm challenging myself.
Right.
What is it you want to leave behind?
Right. Exactly. That's right.
Do you want to leave a trail of poop and bad news
Right.
and bad relationships, or do you want to leave behind some sort of legacy, something people can relate to, attach to,
Right.
and maybe feel comfort and love in your absence?
For sure. Yeah. Very valid points there. Absolutely. So let's see. Let's talk about a couple other types of anxiety. One that is very prevalent is social anxiety. And I think that we see this more and more with technology because we don't have to communicate face to face anymore.
Right.
Like I used to totally be the person that I didn't even want to text. Like I want to talk to you on the phone or I want to talk to you face to face. I don't want to do it this way. Now, from all the years of texting and everything, it's harder to be face to face.
Right.
With
and
people.
then you add the coronavirus.
Yes, this is not
and
helping
now
any of us.
somebody's wearing a mask, somebody's not wearing a mask. Now the level of social anxiety is heightened even a little more than
you're right.
normally. But I think you're right. It starts with this modern technology of you and I were out playing in the streets until the street lights went on.
Right.
As kids.
Exactly.
It's different now.
Yeah, it's way different now, way different. And watching the news too, like we were, I said that I got this episode idea from like all the Karens out there. I guarantee you that those people that go and like freak out on other people, they probably spend so much time watching the news and like thinking about these things and reading articles that it gets them all pumped up. And most of these things that we read are lies or fabrications or whatever.
Or nobody takes the time to see if they are.
Right, exactly.
Fact.
Exactly. So this constant need to know what's going on is giving us a level of social anxiety that we're not even realizing is happening, I don't think.
Right.
It's hitting different for all of us. For me, it's like I get so tired when I go out in public now because people are draining. They're just not nice anymore, and I'm the type that I try to be nice to everybody, and that especially if somebody, I can tell they're having a bad day, like I'll go out of my way to be nice to them to try and help it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's exhausting, man, especially as an empath. Like it is really tiring to go out there and deal with people right now. So once things get back to normal, I'm like, oh man, what's the social anxiety level going to be like, But these are things that we have to deal with as society. We're all kind of dealing with a little bit of that, I think.
Yeah.
We've been kind of taken away from our norm of interacting, maybe.
Right.
I mean, this is pretty normal for me, but...
In the vein of history, I would say we'll go back to some level of, just like previous viruses. It's not... I don't think you're going to see this distancing and masks forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Science evolves, but so does Mother Nature.
Right.
And so it's going to take time, and it's a real kind of long drawn out feels like time, but it will change.
Yeah. I asked our listeners what is the biggest thing for them right now that they're struggling with their anxiety or depression or whatever that they're struggling with mentally. And the first thing that most people said was the election.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get a different side to things outside of the group to find out how people outside of the group felt. So I asked my Facebook friends today, I asked them, are you experiencing anxiety due to the upcoming U.S. election? If so, what are you trying to do to help that anxiety? And I wanted to read a couple of these. Okay. Because these are just coming from like my regular Facebook friends.
Cool.
And one of my friends says, yes, if it doesn't go the way I hope it will, that'll be almost too bitter of a pill to swallow. And I know that there's a lot of people that feel like that right now, that it's like, if it doesn't go this way, I don't know how I'm going to handle that.
Yeah.
Whatever side you're on, people feel like that.
Yeah.
Another one said, nope, I'm excited to get it over with and to stop all the political calls, texts, and mailings.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too. So I said to her, I said, yes, that is beyond annoying. That's great that you're not suffering about the anxiety. And she said, I just look at it that either way, what will be, will be. I could stress about it or be upset and fearful if the outcome isn't what I desire, but it's not going to help me any or be healthy for me. I'd rather find a way to do my part to make whatever situation the best it can be. I thought that was really cool.
Right. Well, and one key thing that jumped out to me in that, what she said, whoever that was.
Yeah, I didn't ask her. I didn't say their name, so I'm not.
Was what I desire.
Right, exactly.
So you still have desire, and you're putting that out there.
Yes.
And everybody in this world, let's take this country, for instance, during this time in the election, everybody has a desire.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
That's all going out there.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that the election will be rigged or won't be rigged, or it'll be legitimate or won't be legitimate. Whatever the outcome is, it is the outcome.
Yeah.
Okay? But once we recognize, I think that we could all focus our desires to one point, we could really shift things.
Absolutely, we could. We're all just, well, I don't want to say everybody, because not everybody's angry, but there is so many angry people out there and so many people that want to argue about it. It's just making it worse. If we could all just back off, let people have their own beliefs. That's one of the hardest things, I think, for people during this election, is just accepting that there are some people that are not going to believe the same way that you do.
Totally.
And yes, there are things that maybe are too much. You know, if you find out that one of your friends is, a white supremacist and you just can't deal with that, well, okay, well, there's a reason to cut the friendship off.
Right.
But just because the friend wants to vote for the opposing team doesn't necessarily mean that there's a reason to end the friendship. But people are arguing so much that they're ending so many friendships over it. It makes me really sad.
Yeah, this is kind of one of the first time I've ever seen this.
Yeah.
Like, get in the way.
Right. Absolutely.
Of people's relationships that have, whether they're family or longtime friends.
Yep.
It's a bummer.
I won't get involved in it at all. Like, if I see it, I might read it, which even at that I know I shouldn't, because it makes me angry to see how... what makes me angry is the way people are treating each other. Mm-hmm. The things that they say about their candidate of choice, how much better they are than the other one or whatever, those things are a little bit annoying. But what's annoying are the angry people that you don't know what you're talking about and this and, shoving it down their throats. We need to stop that.
Right.
It's not going to stop, obviously. But for those of you listening, if that is a problem that you have, stop. Because it'll help not just you, but the other people that you're interacting with. And
right.
In that kind of situation, you can ignore it, or you can come back and say something like, well, I'm sorry that that's your opinion. We have different opinions. Because sometimes hitting your opponent with a nice jab is worse than hitting them with being mean, because they don't know what to do when you're nice.
Well, was there anything else on there besides election kind of?
There was, yes. COVID. This is just the world that we live in, and then, let's see, world events that are happening and the state
But on your question that you asked, did anybody respond maybe something that wasn't...
Well, I had specifically asked about the election.
Oh, okay.
But I'll read one more. There was one more here that is good. It says, yes, I normally am pretty good about not letting anxiety take hold of me, but I can say that there have been some times that I've slipped with this topic. When I feel that start to happen, I will step away from whatever is causing it, TV, social media, conversations, and focus on something else. Meditate or pray, go outside with my dog, and enjoy our beautiful yard, listen to music. I also find watching comedy movies or shows I know are safe because I've seen them before and are a mood elevator.
Right. That's a good approach.
That was great. Yeah. I try to take some of those things myself. Sometimes I have to force myself to put down my phone.
Yeah, because what I got from that was I'm not sticking my head in the sand and ignoring what's going on around me. But when I feel myself get this way, I need to step away and realize that it's not all going to change in a moment just because I feel a certain way.
Right.
And if it's taking me over, then I've got to do something else.
And all these things that we're being faced with, like the people that are posting on social media, it's bombarding now. It's because so many people are posting because it's such a big thing that we're constantly bombarded with it. So we have to get away from it or it will consume us. I don't know how much this week I'm going to be able to be on Facebook. I prefer TikTok now. And even on TikTok, I'll see things that are political, but usually they're funny. And so it's totally different. But Facebook, man, it's just, and Twitter, I don't even go on Twitter ever. I can't imagine people on Twitter right now. It's just not mentally healthy right now. And so I'll give that piece of advice. If you're struggling with this, try to stay off social media for the next 10 days.
I agree.
It will be very helpful. I mean, as much as we want to know what's going on, it's not going to change the outcome at all.
So what else did you have on that?
That was the four things I had were the election, COVID, world events, and the state of the environment. These are on top of people's already, issues that they struggle with.
I think the state of the environment is one for me.
Me too.
Like, I tend to believe in global warming. I see it happening. Is it a process that the Earth goes through every now and then? I don't know. I haven't been around for thousands of years to tell you that. But all I know is it's happening. Right. It's obvious that polar caps are melting.
Yeah.
And what's the result? We don't really know fully until we've all lived through it or don't live through it. So, yeah, I think about that and I think of the life, and what's at stake and a lot of different things for this world.
Yeah.
I think that the world is resilient and will live on for a long time. I think some level of, human or species or something will inhabit it.
For sure.
Until it's engulfed by the sun. So I'm not worried about, us really putting ourselves in extinction. I don't think
that's going to happen. No, I definitely don't think that's going to happen. But
pollution and all this crap, it's like, we're doing it. We're doing it. Nobody else is doing it. We're doing it.
You and I had planned that after Marina went to college, we were going to move up the coast more to like Oregon and Washington. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, in addition to California, Oregon and Washington are on fire. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, shit. Now what do we do? Yeah,
I wanted to move there for the trees, and they're all burning.
Yeah, so what are we supposed to do? But more people are going to think like that, and they're going to be like, I got to get out of California because... Like you are surrounded by mountains here. It's very hard to get away from the fire risk, especially, in more of the rural areas like Northern California is really bad. So what do? More people are going to move. They're going to leave. Yeah. And where are they going to go? Well, the maps are showing that most likely they're going to move towards the East Coast. Because the coastlines are, where the problems, I guess, are more now. I don't know, but now I feel like, okay, well, now global warming has changed possibly our plans of where we're going to move, and I don't like that. That's not fair.
No, because most of those coastal cities will be underwater.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, then where do we go, It's
and then
wild.
What does that do to the water when you've got all these buildings that are sitting there rusting? I don't get it.
I don't either. I hope that it's not something that we see in our lifetime, but we have to be prepared for these things, and especially if we're not going to take control of them, and there are people that are trying to take control of it, and there's others that aren't, but unfortunately, if we don't all play the same rules in the same way, we're not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
It's really not that big of a deal to make some changes in our lives. I don't understand why people can't just admit that this is an issue and help us try and fix it.
Yeah, I feel like environmental laws should just be global.
They really should.
And political should be within your own country, but
you know what? I bet there's
it's easy for me to say.
Right. See, we live in our state is on top of it. They're trying to be. They want to change things. Where, like, maybe people listening on the East Coast will be shocked to find out that we can't use plastic grocery bags. We have to use recyclables. Most places do not have plastic straws anymore. They're paper. These are all things that are changing here. And you know what? There's no reason why you all can't do this too, because it'll help the environment so much. And it is a change, Yeah. But it is a very, very important change. We need to stop making things out of plastic. Plastic is horrible.
Well,
horrible.
I mean, there's other forms of plastic. They can make plastic out of hemp that's fully biodegradable. And there's no reason we shouldn't be doing that.
No. We stopped using Ziploc baggies. Is life any worse? No.
No.
I don't have to buy Ziploc baggies anymore because we
Right.
use reusable ones
Right.
that we can wash. So I'm saving money and I'm helping the environment. A lot of people don't want to do it because they think it's more expensive, but honestly, most of the stuff that you're getting is cheaper, and it does help the environment because
Yeah.
you're reusing. You
True.
know? Do a whole other episode on that one. But
Yeah.
anyways, we're almost out of time.
Almost.
And I've got like 3 pages left, but
Uh-oh.
yeah, but no, we covered a lot. We really did.
We can go a couple more minutes if you want.
Well, a couple of things that one other thing that I found really important is that there are a lot of people I know that listen to the show that are empaths. And being an empath and struggling with mental illness, whatever it is, brings a whole different kind of complication. Because when you have depression, like I battle depression and I'm an empath, it's a lot easier for me when I'm happy to be around somebody that's not and all of a sudden fall into a depression. If I don't let it go, I have to meditate. Right. I have to understand that that's that person's problems. It's not my problems. I have to let it go. But a lot of empaths don't understand that and they don't do that. And I don't do it all the time. I'm guilty of absolutely falling into that. But if you are an empath and these things, you feel other people's energies, even if it's just, like I said, going to a concert or whatever, when we start going back and there's more and more people and you feel that social anxiety, as an empath, it's going to feel worse. And a lot of that might be because you're sensing people's energies around you.
Right.
So if you're prepared and you know how to deal with it, you can handle it a lot better.
I'm a little nervous because I know, the band really wants to get out there and play at some point.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing, but you know what?
Yes.
We're not going to rush it. We're going to do it when it's safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got plenty to focus, so.
It's hard for us to realize that we have plenty of time because we don't think we do, but we do.
Right.
And we just, for a lot of us, we have to slow down and realize that this will get back to normal or whatever the new normal is, and things will be okay. It's just going to take some time. Life is waves. It comes in big waves and small waves, and we're just, dealing with a big wave right now, and it'll get better. It's just the way it goes,
Exactly.
Way. But a couple things to do if you are having any of these issues, and on top of therapy or medication, meditate.
Right.
Learn to meditate and pray.
Right.
Manifest. Talk to God. Talk to your spirit guides.
Right.
They really can help you if you allow them. That's something that we don't really see either, is that, like with the fear of death or whatever, when somebody dies, they try and send us signs that they're okay and tell us what to do and which way to go. Yeah. And if we listen more and recognize these signs more, it does help with the anxiety and the rest of these things as well.
It's true. This is not easy. This life is not.
No.
I'll be the first to say that. But it's still a gift. It's still wonderful.
Yes.
And it's still worth living. So if you're at a point in your own situation, whether you're dealing with someone else's illness or your own, and you've about had enough, before you make any kind of rash decision, there's a lot of 1-800 numbers you can call, that somebody can talk you down a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And just help you for a minute. Yeah. Give that a shot first. Before you do anything, just talk to somebody.
I'm not a counselor, but you can always message me. Yeah. I don't have any training in that kind of thing, but people, they message me and they just tell me I'm having a difficult time, and we can just talk. It doesn't have to be, just I can talk you down if you have nobody else. That's what we're here for. We're here to help each other. And
yes, if that goes for me, if you can get in contact with me on Facebook and you want to private message me about anything.
Yep.
And it's just between you and I.
Yep.
But feel free. I'm here to be an ear for anybody.
Yep. That's what we're here for.
So.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
That's all. Yeah.
Time for.
Yeah, exactly. Could I do a whole other episode? Yeah. I kind of broke it apart a little bit, talking about, depression and PTSD and all that. But I think we hit it. I think we got it good, and, hopefully can help some people. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. Way to go. Well, before we say adios, you want to share your page?
Yes, let's do that. You can find out everything you need on my website, SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. If you want to reach us, you can email us at spiritualjoneses@gmail.com.
Very nice.
That's it. And you, sir?
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Facebook and Instagram. And for the music, gypsybrown.com for the web. Under construction, sorry, but it'll be that way for a little bit.
Yeah.
But not forever.
No.
It's all in steps.
Yeah.
And then for Instagram, at Gypsy Brown Music, and for Facebook, at Gypsy Brown Band. And we're just plugging away. We're still working on the mixing part to be able to start releasing something at some point pretty soon. And getting ready to start recording the next batch so we can actually have like a full album
Yeah.
that you can
it's
buy
very
either the
exciting.
album or per song, however you choose. But
Yeah.
we're working on it. So I have a lot of good people in our corner helping us, and we're very excited. So
Yes.
stay tuned. Promise it's coming. You've been hearing it a long time, but it'll be well worth the wait.
Well worth it. Absolutely.
So that's all I got.
Great.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of it.
That we do.
And go talk to somebody if you're feeling it.
Yep,
If you
and
got some issues.
Stay off social media if you need to this week.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have a great week. Until next week, peace and love.